Hoping this is pointing straight. Greetings, everybody. My name's Jacob, Rhythmic Dragon. I'm making this video here in Southern Oregon, just outside of a town called Talent, on a interpretive trail. I forget the name of this trail at the moment. But I'm making this video today because if you're watching this, and you're probably aware that today is a special day known as the Technosphere constant. And today, at the moment I'm recording this in Oregon, it's the day coded by the white cosmic mirror, Kin 78. But in many parts of the world, especially, well, Eastern Hemisphere, it's already begun, the Kin 79 blue magnetic storm, which codes today, blue magnetic storm. So we're already getting plenty of the storm wave here. And the blue magnetic storm says, I unify in order to catalyze. I unify in order to catalyze, attracting energy. I seal the matrix of self-generation with the magnetic tone of purpose. I am guided by my own power doubled. Now, these code words and the code for the day come from a thing called the Dream Spell 13 Moon Calendar, a system based on the Mayan mathematics system created by Jose Arguelles in the early 90s. And it's based on his work of studying the mathematics of the Mayan calendar, and along with his wife at that time, Loidina Arguelles, in experimenting and living according to natural cycles of time and seeing what that means and what that does to consciousness. And at this time, during their experiment, it became clear there's a natural timing frequency that all the universe is in resonance with, and then there's the artificial machine timing frequency that the human being has created, actually, and is sort of attuned to as well, which is in dissonance with the natural timing frequency. And he put forth the notion that this is really the root deep cause of our disconnection from nature and all the imbalances, inequalities, iniquities, and basically just problems of human civilization. It's because we're just out of sync with the rest of the universe, which is constantly in a state of universal peace and harmony. Although astrophysicists or whatnot might say that it's a chaotic universe and there's a lot of terrifying things that could happen. And I guess from one perspective, especially if you're afraid of death, sure, I guess that can be looked at that way. But the bottom line is the perspective that we're talking about here is that the universe is one massive unified harmony. I'm just going to check something here. Yeah. So, yeah, good. So that's just by way of saying that that's where these codes come from. Today being the blue magnetic storm, and this day being a special day known as the Technosphere constant. Now, these codes were initiated. Well, in their outset, the creation of these codes came along with the notion and idea that the human species at this time is living in a time of transition, a time where we're evolving into a new state of consciousness or awareness, a new quality of experience. It was seen that the process of history had reached a climax, and really at this climax there's going to be an evolutive transformation. And so from the perspective of the work of the Law of Time, say the Dream Spell, 13 Moon Calendar Codes, and the work of Jose Arguelles and so forth, in order to enact this change, it requires returning to the natural timing frequency. And this process was also scientifically described as the biosphere-noosphere transition. So here's where we get to today being the noosphere constant. The transition to the noosphere means that first of all you have the biosphere, the sphere of life, all of life on Earth. We know what the biosphere is. And eventually the human being arises in the biosphere. It's a life form on Earth with self-reflective consciousness, the thing that sets it apart from the other forms of life on Earth, or the other arrangements of atoms and molecules on Earth. The unique thing about the humans is we have this self-reflective consciousness. So within the biosphere arises the human being with self-reflective consciousness. And the term noosphere was coined in part by a man named Vladimir I. Vernadsky in 1926, where he foresaw that what he called biogenic migration of atoms on Earth reaches a climax and then manifests the noosphere as a result of the say free-thinking human activity on Earth. So the noosphere is seen as the sphere of mind around the Earth. So the whole planet Earth as seen as a sphere, and then the noosphere being the whole total of self-reflective consciousness on the planet. It's said that there are planets with noosphere and planets without noosphere, and that we are currently we could say, or from the perspective that I'm trying to share here, is that we're on a planet that's in the stage of an unconscious noosphere. It's becoming conscious. So later, Jose Arguelles in his work was seeing how, okay, we need to get back into natural time. We need to get out of the mechanistic time in order to get back on the evolutionary course. And in his book Time in the Technosphere, he described that in this transition there's kind of an intermediary stage called the Technosphere, and that's the sphere of technology extruded by the human being in its activity. So you have the biosphere, technosphere, noosphere transition, where the technosphere is the mechanistic, he describes it in the Time in the Technosphere, mechanistic placental bag or placental sac in which, through which the human being has propagated itself all over the planet now, and we're everywhere in the planet. We can travel all over the planet, and now with communications technologies, we're basically in touch with anyone, anywhere on the planet at any time. So we're in the stage of the technosphere reaching its climax. And so being in artificial time, in other words, actually served an important purpose, which it accelerated the process of human beings spreading across the Earth. So that also accelerated the process of there becoming a sphere of mind around the Earth, wherein the self-reflective conscious entity or life form on Earth, human being, is now inhabiting every piece of land on the Earth that it can. And some are in the ocean as well. So the technosphere has, in other words, served its purpose. And so this was kind of a big part of the message, really also of like 2012 and things like that, a big change in the planet. The message of the biosphere-noosphere transition is that, okay, we've reached the climax of material expansion. We've got more innovative gadgets and things like that coming out all the time, but frankly, in terms of change of quality of human experience, it's really minimal. So we've already reached the climax of that whole process. And the notion that we're suggesting here is that, okay, we need to pause, make a shift, and get back on track to becoming a fully conscious noosphere. Now, within the biosphere, technosphere, noosphere transition, there's even a kind of another mini stage where you have the technosphere, cybersphere, noosphere transition. The cybersphere, of course, is the sphere of technology through which I'm talking to you right now as one noospheric chip to another, whomever is watching and listening to this. We are utilizing the cybersphere, the sphere of internet, the sphere of communications technology to communicate with one another. And this is actually seen as a pseudo-noosphere. It's a pseudo-noosphere because this is a technological extraction from the human consciousness. It's not something spontaneously arising, say, necessarily from the biosphere. And that's just an interesting thing to think about. But the point is, it's all part of one unitary process. And so, in one whole system process, which is the evolution of life and consciousness in the galaxy and on the solar system and in the planet. So, and this is all just sharing the perspective of this work by Jose Arguelles and my understanding of it, and just trying to share it with you. So the cybersphere is the stage now that we're at, where we have, of course, as you know, the cybersphere is kind of like a biosphere. It has its own system of processes. You could say it has its own sedimentary layers with all the layers of codes and bits and bytes. And then you have like the flora and fauna, or you have, say, like the plant life that grows, which can be considered software or viruses. Parasites could be seen as viruses, so forth like that. computer viruses that is. Then you have the flora and fauna, the human beings, or say rather their avatars as they move around and sometimes shout and get in arguments with each other on the cybersphere. You know, it has its own food chain, and you know, be aware if you're on the wrong side of an argument in any particular space on the cybersphere, because your little avatar will get eviscerated, and your physical emotional body will have the kind of buffer that you wouldn't have if you were trying to have these discussions in person and say the things that you dare say on a comments thread in person. So the cybersphere, this is just by way of saying that it's a pseudo-noosphere. It's an artificial version of what the noosphere really is meant to become, and will become, and is actually becoming. So the thing about the noosphere that is extremely fascinating is that anytime you talk or think about the noosphere or discuss about it with your friends or family, or think about it with yourself, that is the noosphere becoming conscious. Just as, you know, when you sit and reflect on your own consciousness, who am I? Where did I come from? Where will I go when I'm gone? What is consciousness? Where are these thoughts coming from? When they go, where do they go? Who makes them go? Who makes them come? This is you making yourself conscious. So when any human being, as one noospheric chip, one of 7 or 8 billion noospheric chips, reflects upon the noosphere, this is literally the lights coming on in the noosphere. This is the noosphere making itself conscious. The noosphere making itself conscious. So I'm out here in the woods getting rained on and shivering a little bit, but it's immaculately beautiful in the forests of Oregon. And I wanted to make the video here, even though I'm doing this through the cybersphere and with this, let me see, this technology, this technology that's recording. I'm still here in nature, and the reason for this is I wanted to encourage everyone, you know, if you're seeing this, it's because you're on the cybersphere right now. You're watching this video. You heard about the promotions of it, that people were going to come on something called the Noosphere Constant Day and talk about the noosphere, and you heard this through the cybersphere, right? So I just wanted to put forth a notion, an idea, and maybe just a suggestion, a call to adventure that you know, perhaps we're creating our world through all this cyberspheric activity. You know, we're creating a lot of and amplifying a lot of, you know, tape loops, amplifying a lot of repeat programs that are causing a lot of harm for many people. And it's really like it's all happening on the cybersphere. You know, it affects and gets into your emotional body, and then it kind of erupts in different ways through different types of you know, people. And so the point is that the cybersphere is not a place where we're going to evolve. You know, we can't, you know, solve the same problem, as the famous saying goes. We can't solve the problem with the same mind that created it. And the cybersphere isn't getting us anywhere in terms of our own human consciousness, our evolving love, compassion, and understanding of each other, and the attendant actions that we ought to take once we do understand each other and the needs that we all have. At this point in history, there's no reason with the technology that we have that anyone ought to be suffering for homelessness, hunger, inequality, discrimination. You know, there should basically really be no massive survival drive. And really the only thing keeping it in place is the vast inequality and you know, the hugely imbalanced resources and say power, I guess you could say, although true power lies within each of us and each of our hearts. But the point is, all this is like repeat stuff. We're not getting anywhere with our technology, no matter how more fancy it gets. So my call to adventure for you guys is just try to get out from nature. These next 13 days, this is the storm wave spell of self-generation, catalyzing energy. And so I guess my invitation for this Noosphere Constant Day is to give yourself as much of a break from the cybersphere as you can during these 13 days, maybe longer, maybe a complete break from it. And get out to nature, sit on your butt a little bit and look at your mind. and listen to the birds and let the rain like fall on your face. You know, feel reality a little bit, and because this is really where the noosphere comes alive. And if we could, what I think is what's happening is on the cybersphere, we're recycling a lot of old thoughts and they continue to accelerate and amplify. So this is just my own trip idea, whatever. And so it leads into another fun notion that, well, hey, maybe if we go out into nature and let ourselves experience just straight humanness again as much as possible, as much as absolutely possible, without any sort of goal, except for perhaps trying to reflect upon the noosphere, the idea of the noosphere, that really we are one human being, we live on one planet, we're all interconnected, and we, through our own reflection upon that fact, is we can make that more and more real. And not only that, transform ourselves from the inside out and find that eternal wellspring of boundless compassion and true spiritual power in order to right the wrongs through the power of absolutely unstoppable love. So that's my invitation to you guys. I love you so much. Thank you for tuning in to the Noosphere Constant. If you're new to this whole thing, congratulations to you, because by God, this is probably a super strange thing to most people. So good for you, and wish you all the best. Mwah, love, bye.